It's October the 28th. 8:15. So if you haven't been following me or know what's going on in my life, you're listening to a woman who survived multiple acts of genocide, 2 in the last decade. And those are just the big things. Those aren't the other little assaults and just constant fucking with my life, with my property, with the enjoyment of my life. It just does not stop. It just keeps getting piled on and piled on and piled on. So, I don't know how much you know about what calls itself government. I don't know how much you know about what calls itself your court system, your justice system. But from years of experience, and in the age of information, there's no way you shouldn't know this. Right? You've got children of the devil that control the court system. Only children of the devil are called to the Bar Association, no matter what country you go to. So we're going to go and we're going to listen to a live post I did today when I went to my property to inform the trespassers that they are leaving. As exhausted as I am, and I am beyond exhausted at this point, because there is no righteous advocacy around. But first, I'm going to read you part of a private information document that I've written, because there's 2 individuals who believe that they have a mortgage on my home that they don't. And these 2 persons for the last 2 years have been making passive income using my stolen property while I am homeless and destitute. So I say public servant, right, because I'm going to have to go in, right, and I'm going to have to go in and I'm going to have to move these matters forward. Public servant, be informed, I, woman in need of protection, the living Victoria Nevins, KC, because I identify as King's Counsel. And I'm not talking about that thing trying to pass itself off as royalty in the UK. I'm talking about the one who sent me here from above. I don't associate with persons who have membership to the Law Society of British Columbia and the Canadian Bar Association for the following physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual reasons. So, blessed are those who do not take counsel from the wicked, stand in the seat of evildoers, or sit in the seat of mockers. No, that describes bar members, who then become this thing called the court, which is completely corrupt. So where you're going to find that truth is in the book of Psalms. Psalm 1:1, 10:2, 17:4. The scriptures are the native language of my people, the peculiar people. Members of the Canadian Bar Association have proven, as written, to be ruthless, cursed, arrogant, useless, and that's written in Jeremiah 13:10, Ezekiel 15:6, and Hosea 7:16. Children of their father the devil, you can go look that up in John 8:44. Guilty of perpetual fraud, slander, lawlessness, unlawful conversion, racism, perversion, perjury, racketeering, injustice, confusion, chaos, murder, theft, destruction, and genocide. As my brother prophesied, lawyers, aka lawyers, are unfit for service. Matthew 23:4 and Luke 11:46. My brother makes claim. Destruction to you as well, experts in witchcraft, aka legal fiction. He replies, "You weigh the innocent down with heavy burdens, but you witches will not lift a finger to lighten their load. Not one member of the Law Society of British Columbia will lift a narcissistic, sociopathic, antichrist finger to work justice after my interest private property was stolen by application and title fraud. The entire inheritance embezzled by dozens of arrogant abomination persons who act for criminal organizations named and shamed herein." In the description box of the uploads, I include proof. Proof, and nothing but proof. Which is not evidence, by the way. Proof and evidence have nothing to do with each other. You're not getting around proof. You're not going to argue proof either. Evidence is different. This matter, orchestrated to cause me intentional loss, harm, and injury, now before Public Servant Agency, Provincial Court of British Columbia, will be adjudicated by a person acting as justice of the peace to eliminate injustice, discrimination, and racism. This person must become expert on procedure of the King's Common Law High Court. These laws are non-negotiable obligations, duties, and responsibilities of this public servant to assist myself and my family. No hearsay permitted in the King's Common Law High Court. Therefore, Benjamin Howe and Senator Dennis speak for themselves and their intentional violations of the Criminal Code of Canada. Besides, these persons cannot afford a racketeer acting as an agent of the Law Society of BC, as they owe, as ordered by the King of Kings, $375,000 in civil damages. Be aware this true and due debt is payable forthwith. I've explained that as well multiple times, why they owe that amount. So the reason why I've just read you that is when we go into the live post that I did on Instagram earlier in the afternoon, that document is sitting on my lap. And that's some of what I delivered at my stolen property today. Because there's a constant problem going on, isn't there? Because in April of 2009, the most disgusting part about what's happening to me is it's happened to others before it's happened to me. Title fraud and application fraud it's happening twice a week in Canada. There's $100 million in fraudulent mortgages across Canada. And you know why that is? It's because those who pretend to be law enforcement and those who pretend to be public service agencies are useless. And they actually don't care. And they don't know what they're doing or what they're talking about. So the matter just continues to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. My home was stolen to facilitate money laundering. So in April 2009, this fiction trying to pass itself off as the BC Court of Appeal held that unless the mortgage is granted by the true owner of a property, the mortgage is invalid and the owner's title is returned to the original state. Well, the original state of the title on my house, on my property, is in the name of my spouse. And in the trust that he left me, it is crystal clear. If you haven't gone in and read it, it's 2 pages long. It's not difficult to understand at all. I have been gifted all of my spouse's property of every kind and wherever located. I, in addition to all powers conferred by law, and law is not legal, law and legal have nothing to do with each other. Law is for the living, legal is for the dead. Law is for those who understand justice and life more abundantly, and legal is for the dead and those who want to be and do evil. That's who works in legal. That's who operates in legal. So I have been given power that I can choose to exercise or not exercise. And I have the power to convert the property or any part of the property into money, decide how, decide when, and on what terms. I may keep the property or any part of property in the form it is at my spouse's passing and for as long as I decide. And that power applies even if the property is not an investment, even if a debt is owing on the property, or the property does not produce income. Now that's referring to property tax. Yes, it is. Yeah. You cannot come in and steal in trust property. So then part B of point 4 is I may at any time compromise, settle, waive any claim due to or due by the estate, the property, for whatever consideration and on whatever terms I decide. I can extend, I can continue, I can renew any evidence of any liability I may have as endorser. Sorry, as it's my spouse he's talking about. Of any liability my spouse had as endorser, guarantor, surety, or otherwise for any liability of any person. Now you have to understand what a person is. A person would be CIBC. A person would be Fulton and Company. A person would be Cox Taylor. A person would be the BC Provincial Court. A person would be the provincial government of British Columbia. A person would be the federal government of Canada. A person is a thing. It's a thing. That's why I never allow any savage to lower my status to a person, because I'm not a person. I'm one of the living. I'm a living woman. This is why my life is under constant threat and duress. So because my home was stolen by application and title fraud, because what happened is this sewer rat named Daniel Carroll drew up a document filled with lies and nothing but lies, claiming I owed money I didn't owe. And with that lie, they came in, and I mean dozens of witches came in, stole my home, my property, which you can't do, and then they embezzled the entire estate, which is legally called mischief, causing actual danger to life, and the punishment is imprisonment for life. It's also an act of genocide. And the punishment for genocide is imprisonment for life. So that's 2 witnesses against each and every witch who aided and abetted this last act of genocide against me. Because you can't even imagine the level of lies and, lying legally is called fraud, right? The level of fraud that took place for years. This has been going on for 4 years, and I'm not back on my property. And no justice has been served, even though I fought for justice, and I was right the whole time. And I kept saying something, because I'm not just going to allow them to murder me and not say something, right? Like, would you? You can't do this, and yet it's happening twice a week to a mortgage-free home in Canada. Because the case that I referred to before in April 2009, in that thing calling itself the BC Court of Appeal, which is run by things, by the way, run by persons, right? The Walking Dead, that's who gets called to the bar. The Walking Dead get called to the bar. So this is from the BC Real Estate Association, who, by the way, I have notified of these matters, and as per usual, they could fucking care less. They don't give a flying fuck that they're rats, their reprobate rat real estate agents have involved themselves. 4 of them have involved themselves in the theft of my interest private property. Because all of those reprobate real estate agents made money illegally, aiding and abetting that crime. So they don't care, right? As long as they got paid, they don't care. So the court found that under the Act, so an act isn't a law, an act is a guideline at best, a mortgage granted by a person who obtained their title by fraud or forgery is invalid. So that's how CIBC obtained what they did, right? They put my home into the name of the bank, which you can't do. And then they put it up for sale without my consent. And they kept demanding that I sign their witchcraft documents. And I refused. I'm not going to consent to your fucking crimes. I'm not going to consent to you being witches practicing witchcraft. I know, this is not my first rodeo. I know exactly who and what the fuck you all are and what the fuck you all do. So the act preserves, and it's a Latin term that they use, meaning that no one can give what they do not have. So you can't give something to someone that you don't have, right? With respect to charges. So even when a mortgage has relied on the registered title and dealt bona fide with a non-fictitious registered owner, the mortgagee does not acquire any estate or interest in the lands on registration of their mortgage, where they've been granted by a person who had no valid interest in the lands, and such mortgages are void. So the first two Asians who never had valid title to my home, because CIBC never had valid title to my home, means that those two Asians can't sell that home, that property, to Benjamin Howe and Sandra Dennis. And if Greer Jacks and Kirsten Martin had done their due diligence, because it was pretty obvious there was something going on, they would have figured that out. And you need to go in and listen to the phone call that I made to Greer Jacks. And because that's case in point of why I do not and will not associate with bar members. They're abso-fucking-lutely the stupidest pieces of shit on the fucking planet. Like, absolutely fucking vile. And when we go into the live post on Instagram, it's going to cut out. The audio is going to cut out. I don't know why it does that. It just does that. So what I'm trying to explain is the mind of a witch, and how a witch thinks, and how a witch talks. Everything to a witch is backwards. So when I go up to the Masonic Coven here, Victoria PD or Saanich PD, and I speak the truth to them, they automatically believe that I'm telling a lie. When I go up to them and report a crime to them, I'm then treated like the criminal. And the criminals are then protected. And that's why I've been out of my house for so many years. Don't think they all didn't know. They all know. And the first live post I did on Instagram was because I had gotten a call because I went to the home, the property of Sandra Dennis and Benjamin Howe, and I delivered them proof that that's not your house. You can't keep using my stolen property. You need to fucking get all those trespassers off my property. This is over now. They called the Vic PD, who then called and attacked me. And it happens all the time. And that's what prompted the first live post on Instagram. That was back in January. And now almost a year later, nothing has changed. Despite the fact that I fucking say something constantly. Because let's go in and read a letter that I've written earlier. Earlier today. So this is earlier today, and I've said that this has been sent to every so-called public service justice having something to do with the Justice Public Service Agency in British Columbia, including one in Vancouver that has something to do with the federal government of Canada, supposedly to do with justice. We've got David Eby here. We've got Johnny Van Camp. We've got Marie Rankin. We've got Dean Duthie. That's the alleged chief of police. We've got the OPCC, that's the complaints department when you have a problem with one of the sewer rats pretending to be police. You've got the BC Securities Commission, you've got the Civil Forfeiture Office, you've got Scotiabank notified, you've got a myriad of CIBC agents notified. You've got the Ombudsman for Victims of Crime, the BC Hate Crimes team, the Mayor of Saanich, the Ombudsman for the OBSI. They're supposed to oversee the covens calling themselves banks across Canada. You've got this disgusting thing pretending to be the Saanich MLA, Lana Popham. You've got the professional conduct team at the Legal Services of BC, the Law Society of BC. I mean, every single one of them is just an absolute joke, waste of time. So, attention covens of public servant incompetence tagged in this notice and demand. Cursed Rico Cub and Scotiabank will not be collecting one more dime on the fraudulent mortgage held by criminals Benjamin Howe and Sandra Dennis, doing business as Howfam Holdings. Racist Masonic fraternity criminals acting as Saanich law enforcement have been found guilty of aiding and abetting this latest act of genocide against me when they were informed repeatedly my interest private property was being stolen before and after I was violently removed. Isn't that right, Francisco Avales? Now that thing came to my house, so Bradley Walker, who knew that was interest private property, and I said to that thing, you better stay away from this matter because if you don't, you're going to go to jail for the rest of your life. And then I got attacked by the sewer rat Daniel Carroll in Kamloops pretending to be Fulton and Company. So that thing, Bradley Walker, called up the Saanich PD and filed a fraudulent report. They showed up at my house, they got inside my house, and don't ever talk to them. Don't ever fucking talk to them. Because all of a sudden, this child of the devil, Francisco Avales, has twisted and turned something I've said, and all of a sudden I'm being fucking kidnapped and hauled off. Well, you know, they haul you off to the loony bin. He took me there at 11 o'clock at night because he didn't want to do anything on his shift that night, so we could sit there and do nothing. I received no help. They left me sitting in a room, fucking with the lights on like fucking Costco. You know, there was no bed to sleep in. And then I had to speak to some physician of no value at 7 o'clock in the morning who didn't have a fucking clue. Just an absolute, you know, the mind just spins on stupid when you're a child of the devil, eh? And I got no help at all. I was assaulted and violated. No different than being raped. I'm not even shitting you. And they had a package of proof in their hands when they were inside my house, which they should have never been inside my house. And they did not care. They do not fucking care. They're there to protect the criminals, not the victim here. So nothing but proof against you all. Criminal charges are forthcoming against all guilty cursed persons like Jeff Bevington and Mike Duquette. So when you go into my uploads, I went last November, at the end of November, and I went right to the door with a package of proof. And I spoke to two of them. And I was assaulted and violated by both of them. And I received no help. And then after that, now I've been criminally harassed and tortured. And again, except for one of those assaults, I've got them recorded. There was assault on December the 10th that, unfortunately, my microphone wasn't on. But there was a female witch and a male witch at the door assaulting me and warning me if I don't stop emailing them about what's happened to me, and they're not going to help me. That's what I heard at the door. Can you imagine? I can. So I continue on as King's Counsel from foreign jurisdiction, a refugee in constant fear for my life for obvious reasons. I'm not subject to the way of the heathen, or the heathen's cursed satanic system of Babylonian bullshit trying to pass itself off as government public services. So if I require files, I'll be coming into each government public service location to collect my property without interference or denial to that proof, to do my job and hold guilty persons accountable. Because I'm going to pick up every single fucking piece of paper that has to do with the first act of genocide. And I'm going to find out who bought my son. And I'm going to find out which of the witches acting as the BC Supreme Court sold my son. Yeah, I am. Yeah, because that's genocide. So that's why it's written in Scripture that the peculiar people are not to learn the way of the heathen, right? Because it's the way of the dead. And the dead are blind and the dead are deaf. You can't reason with the dead. You can't speak to the dead. The dead don't understand anything. And that's who represents the beast, a.k.a. the government. So then I continue on. Best learn the living are in authority, not the dead. So I just, I continue on, right? Because I'm not going to stop. They're not going to stop. They haven't stopped trying to destroy my life for 5 decades. I have to engage. Nothing will get done if I don't engage. Which is exactly why my brother would prophesy that these witches acting as, with membership to the bar, they don't lift a finger to do anything about any of the crimes. They're behind them all. They're behind them all. They've aided and abetted everything. All the BC Attorney Generals are behind all of these acts of genocide, including David Eby, and including Murray Rankin. Now, right? Because they only know how to do murdering, stealing, and destroying. That's it. That's their claim to fame. And their native language is compulsive lying. So that's why there is war. Wickedness against righteousness. There's constant war for me. Constant war going on. Do you have any idea how tiring that is? I am beyond exhausted. Absolutely beyond. You know, because I'm being gang stalked to death, right? Organized stalking. It's the cult. It's the occult. That's what they're doing to me. It's ritual abuse. It's constant. Because I'm one of the targeted ones. They want to, well, they've destroyed my life completely. And the quality of my life. I have no enjoyment at all. Ever. Never. I live in the house of mourning. I have for 50 years. So the goal is for me to have a nervous breakdown. The goal is for me to become incarcerated or institutionalized. The goal is for them to cause me constant mental, emotional, and physical pain. The goal, and now they've done this to me, was to render me homeless, and so they've done that. And now the goal, by constantly torturing me and refusing to serve me, which is discrimination, which you can't do. See, the whole goal is for me to commit suicide, because then I just go away and then they win. And then they've stolen everything from me. My son, our life together, my home, my property, the entire inheritance, $750,000, which is that's what they fire sold my home for. And most of the personal chattel. And then they saddled me with $1,200 in rent I can't afford. Then they saddled me with $400 storage locker fee I can't afford. I have nothing. I have nothing. And they're more than happy to let this continue on and not do anything about it. And so every claim that they have had in their whorehouse at 850 Burdett Avenue has been scandalous, malicious, frivolous, without merit, absolutely fucking ridiculous. And yet they accuse me, when I go for justice, they use Rule fucking 9.5. They're hypocrites, right? They're hypocrites. They accuse me of what they're guilty of doing. Right, because they're narcissists. They're, that's the world's word for children of the devil. So these children of the devil surround themselves with their own kind, who enable their behavior, or ignore their behavior, or encourage their behavior. So the victims, then, who try to hold them accountable, are accused and blamed of the exact things that these children of the devil are guilty of. And see, here's the weird thing. Even if a few of them know the truth, they're guilty by association, because then they remain silent. And so I'm in a toxic environment. Like, this world is toxic. This age is toxic. So toxic environments bring out poor behaviors in even the most patient of people. Survivors of psychological abuse often find themselves behaving in ways that do not fit their normal personality. This shift can serve as a red flag that the environment is unhealthy. And you've heard me act out of character. Yep, you have. And it happens when I'm being abused to the point where they're trying to cause me to commit suicide, with more discrimination and more refusal of service and more satanic ritual abuse, which is constant in my life. Well, how do you think they got my son and never returned him when they had no case on me at all? You know. And so there's like trauma. When you've gone through this much trauma for this many decades, there's effects on you. Like, it affects your entire life. So as a targeted individual, a woman of the peculiar people, a truthful whistleblower, I've survived continued acts of injustice, hate, persecution, discrimination, racism, war, and genocide. Now so traumatized I can barely function. And that's what happens, right? Like, I can barely function. Looking after myself is a full-time job, and I'm exhausted because I'm so damaged. So the physical symptoms of trauma are, insomnia, being startled easily, racing heartbeat, constant aches and pains, constant fatigue, difficulty concentrating, edginess and agitation, muscle tension, having trouble functioning, just on any and all level, severe fear, anxiety and depression. You can't have anybody in your life when you're in this much pain. I can't. I wouldn't do that to somebody else. I wouldn't. I'm in so much pain, I'm hard to be around. So I don't have anybody around at all, ever. My spouse was my best friend. It was for over 20 years. And experiencing terrifying memories. Well, yeah, like you just relive it because there's been no justice. And without justice, there's no healing. Avoiding more and more things that remind you of the trauma. So all the traumatic events, the worst ones have happened at 850 Burdett Avenue. And yet I know I have to go back down in there, knowing full well I'm more than likely going to be violently assaulted because they hate me so much. And it's a normal reaction for them to hate me because the dead that I'm trying to deal with, are jealous of me because I'm not one of the dead. So let's go in and listen here. It's the 28th of October. It's about 20 after 2, and I need a witness. Because I'm sitting outside my house. This is my house. This has been my house since 2003. And my house has been stolen from me by way of application and title fraud by CIBC. And literally dozens of children of the devil who are once again in a, well, this is genocide, right? And they stole all the money. So I'm doing a live post as I need proof, right? Like, I'm collecting proof. This is a criminal matter, and it's also a civil matter. So let me set up some boundaries here, because that's what I do, because I have to do that, don't I? So apparently Canada's got this Act for Multiculturalism. It talks about the Constitution where every individual is equal before and under the law and has the right to equal protection and benefit of the law without discrimination. Well, that has never been afforded to me once. I've survived 2 acts of genocide in less than a decade. Transferring children from one group to another group is legally defined as genocide. Now, by way of application and title fraud, CIBC, which I'm not a client of, never was, never fucking will be, they hired a bunch of fucking witches to come in and steal my house and then embezzle the entire state, leaving me intentionally homeless. And now, not one fucking savage acting as a public servant will pick up a fucking finger and do anything to help me. So apparently everyone has the right to freedom of conscience and peaceful assembly and association, and guarantees those rights and freedoms equally to all people. Yeah, right. Never. And then it goes on. Canada's a party to the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. A convention recognizes that all are equal before the law and are entitled to equal protection of the law against any discrimination and against any incitement to discrimination. What a joke. I'm sorry, they don't follow any of that. There's a different set of rules for me because I'm one of the living, right? I'm one of the peculiar people. International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. A covenant provides that people belonging to an ethnic or linguistic minority, well, that would be my people, shall not be denied the right to enjoy our own culture or use our own language. Okay, well, again, right, I've never been afforded those protections. Not once, not ever. Have you read the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination? Article 5. Go through it. Right? Apparently I've got the right to equal treatment before tribunals and all other organs administering justice. So how the fuck have I had multiple acts of genocide committed against me with frivolous, scandalous, vexatious, without merit, absolutely fraudulent as fuck accusations and claims? Like, this is just fucking beyond disgusting. Oh, apparently I've got the right to security and protection by those pretending to be the province of British Columbia or the federal government of Canada against violence or bodily harm, whether inflicted by government officials or any individual group or institution. Okay, well then, so why have I been repeatedly, viciously assaulted by persons pretending to be police for the District of Saanich who refuse to do anything to help me? Oh, apparently I've got the right to take part in this thing called the government, as well as in the conduct of public affairs at any level and to have equal access to public service. No, that right's not afforded to me ever. I've got the right to freedom of movement and residence. Well, then how the fuck has my house been stolen from me and I've been out of my home for close to 3 years now? I've got the right to own property alone. Apparently I don't. Apparently I don't even have the right to inherit, which this fucking covenant claims that I do. To freedom of thought, conscience, and the right to freedom of expression. Apparently I've got the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association. Yet, I'm never afforded that right by any of the public servants. So those are the boundaries we're just set up here. I gotta go fast because my phone is really old and I'm afraid it's gonna cut out on me and I need to make sure this is saved. So I'm gonna read to you the trust fund that my spouse created for us. So that's what so a last will and testament is a trust, for those of you who don't know what the fuck is going on. So he says that he appoints me to be the owner of everything. So point 3, he gives me all of the property of every kind, wherever located. Oh, there goes a pig. There goes an unmarked pig driving down Glanford Avenue. So he gives me all the property of every kind, wherever located, to administer as directed in the trust. In administering the property, I can convert or retain the estate as set out in paragraph 4A. So let's read 4A. Let's see, 4A. In addition to all powers conferred by law. So this doesn't talk about legal acts and bullshit and fucking garbage like that. It talks about the law. Talks about the law. I have the power to exercise at my discretion. I can convert the property or any part of the property into money, decide how, when, on what terms. I can keep whatever property or any part of the property in the form it is at my spouse's passing for as long as I decide, even for the duration of the trusts and the will. The power applies even if the property is not an investment authorized under the will, a debt is owing on the property, or the property does not produce income. That is so important for you to understand what that says. So that's crystal clear, right? Like, you can't get around it. It's fucking bulletproof. It's literally fucking bulletproof. And yet it's all been fucking stolen. And the fucking trust is gone completely fucking, well, it's, yeah. Like they just fucking completely ignored it. So here I've got some information I'm about to drop off in the mailbox. So this is the trespass notice that's going on the door. So attention, you reading this notice and demand. Attention, Benjamin Howland, Sandra Dennis. This is a peaceful, non-violent process. Therefore, you are not permitted to speak to me unless I even think about looking at me sideways. Yes, you, along with other guilty persons trespassing on stolen interest private property. Pack your personal belongings immediately. Saturday, that's tomorrow at 1 p.m., I'm going to be back here to collect video evidence and to supervise you trespassers getting the fuck up. I own the house, and I require your full legal names and forwarding addresses because you're being criminally charged, and I'm filing civil damages against you, filing claim. And you've known for a fucking year that this is stolen property. So on Saturday from 1 to 6, under my supervision, you're going to be packing up. At 6 p.m., you're all leaving. And I get every fucking key to this property because I'm going to lock up my property to make sure it's secure and make sure you don't damage anything. So from Sunday, from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m., you're going to be finished moving and you're not permitted back onto my private property again after the date and time. Any trespasser's personal chattel not removed by 4 p.m. Sunday is considered abandoned. And I need everything in writing, because I'm building a case against you. And here is private information that's going up against Benjamin Howe and Sandra Dennis. So you'll have to stop this and read it, because they're persons counseling offense, attempts, disobeying a statute, compounding indictable offense, criminal negligence, torture, theft from a woman having special property or interest, fraudulent concealment, robbery, possession of property obtained by crime, false pretense, fraud, threat against an internationally protected woman, willfully causing event to occur, mischief, causing actual danger to life, participation in activities of criminal organization, and I don't associate with bar members. I don't associate with bar members. So these two criminals, Sandra Dennis and Benjamin Howe, they're on their own. Yeah, no, I'm afraid they are. I'm afraid you're on your own. You're going to have to fucking defend yourselves in your fucking lies, in your criminal activity. Right? Because I'm not going to fucking continue to put up with your fucking satanic bullshit, your fucking disrespect, and your racism and your ugliness. CIBC never had title to my house, right? They never fucking had title to my house. So how in the fuck have you managed for the last 2 years to make passive income using my stolen property? Right, and then when I do try to do this, you know what happens? The criminals acting as police, they decide they're going to protect the criminal and they're going to attack me, the victim of the crime, because for a witch, when you're a witch, everything is in reverse. So let's go and wait, because you're coming with me, right? Because I need fucking witnesses. So let's go put this in the mailbox. Post this on the door, because I fucking had it. There's not going to be a fucking pig in this fucking town who's going to fucking help me with any of this. Get the fuck out of my house, get the fuck off my property, and fucking get the fuck out now. Fucking animals. It's fucking disgusting. Should have seen what they've done to my fucking property. Just absolutely fucking destroyed it. Yeah, it's always a big fucking joke, isn't it? The fucking victim of a crime here. So let's look and see what just happened here. There we go. We've got it fucking pasted on the fucking door. So what do you think? Would you have fucking had enough if you were me by now? I've owned this house for 20 fucking years. This has been my house for 20 fucking years and it's been completely fucking destroyed. They wouldn't give me any fucking money to move. That means all the fucking personal chattel that can't be replaced was fucking stolen by the first two fucking Asian abomination, arrogant fucking savages who fucking had the house to launder fucking money. It's October. Right. So, I've been through 50 years of hell. That's why I look like hell. Yeah. You think you go through that kind of hatred for that many decades and not have an effect on every aspect of your life? Yeah, actually it does. But I keep writing. Right? I keep saying something because I have to. Well, I can't let them continue on to do this to me. Can I? So I have no idea what tomorrow's going to look like. I don't have any support. You know, because all the fucking cockroaches scatter. When you're in this kind of trouble, and this kind of hatred is all over you, nobody wants to have anything to do with it either. So it's twofold, right? Not only I'm hard to be around because I'm in so much pain, but nobody wants to have anything to do with this because the level of persecution and discrimination is so out of control and off the charts. Yeah. But I'm supposed to hold my cool, right? And not flip out. And, you know, the whole thing with knowing the truth and them completely ignoring you as you're telling the truth. Well, that's satanic ritual abuse at its finest. Right? Who bought my son? Because you went in and you read the notice of civil claim that I wrote, didn't you? Because when you were writing a notice of civil claim, the notice of civil claim is like the introduction to an essay, and that the notice of civil claim introduces your affidavits, and then your affidavits introduce your exhibits, and that's exactly what I wrote. Now, I'm not the same woman I was when I wrote it. I'm one of the living. I'm growing all the time. But I can tell you that I did thousands of hours of research before I wrote it, and I had even studied other notices of civil claim. And yet those fucking witches, Joker Johnny, the vile Van Camp, reprobate Rebecca, wicked Wadmot, reprobate Robert the Puke Punnett, and some witch named Boog, right, with one mind, which was to murder, steal, and destroy, used a fucking a civil rule, which you can't use. Rule 9.5 is their fucking get out of jail free card, right? It's their fucking claim to fame. Rule 9.5. That my fucking claim is vexatious, frivolous, scandalous, and without merit. You have to be fucking joking. So all they've done is made it worse for themselves. That's all they've done. That's why the judgment is $730 million. It's true, it's due, and it's payable. Yeah, I'm afraid it is. I don't give a flying fuck about your fucking money, your idle mammon. It has no value at all, but it does to you witches, eh? That's what you witches chase. Every day, all day, it's all about the fucking lie called fucking money. Well, money ain't gonna save you on Judgment Day. No, I'm afraid it ain't. Nope, that's why I went in and I did a whole playlist for you. Right, because here's the deal. When a ruler listens to lies, and that's exactly what you're looking at here, all of its officials are wicked. You get that? When a wicked ruler listens to lies, the thing is a druid, all of its officials are wicked. And as it's written, so it shall be. You can't get around it. Every day, all day, that book is playing out right in front of your face, whether you realize it or not. What is written is how it rolls out. Right? The costume change, the set changes, and the players change. But the testimony remains the same. From the beginning of the age to the end of the age. Anyway, I'm sure you're completely overwhelmed. Right? INFJ personality type, 1 to 3% of your population, Rh negative blood, no earthly origin. That's why I'm still in the fight, right? That's why. Because I do understand. And now there's not too much I don't understand. And now I understand the banking witchcraft that's used across Canada. They don't loan you a dime. And then they steal money by the way of usury. They call it interest. And now I know, right? And so do you. You should already know that anyway. There's not a fucking dime a bank makes that's made legitimately. Not a dime. They had an insurance policy on the personal line of credit that my spouse had with them. And for months in the fall of 2017, that $40,000 was missing on the account because they had applied to the insurance company and they had it paid out. So they already had it paid out. By the time they came at me in September 2018, that $40,000 had already been paid. So in the witchcraft industry, banking, that's called double fisting. Coincidence? I don't think so. The fucking bank is like the casino. The fucking house always wins. And that's why those who need to launder money use those two satanic cults, casinos and banking, to launder their money. And that's exactly why my house was stolen, so money could be laundered. Because those first two agents didn't get into that house to flip that house to make a profit. They got into that house so they could launder close to $1 million. And now my single fucking family dwelling has been flipped into a fucking commercial property. Do you have any idea how fucking disgusting that is? How fucking sickening that is?